What's going on YouTube? It is Texans Takeover back in another video. In today's video, we're doing another Ultimate GM Simulator, but we're only going to the free agency period. I really want to highlight free agency in this video rather than the draft. I feel like I get uber draft focused sometimes, so this time I just want to really analyze who I want the Texans to restructure, who I want the Texans to sign in free agency. So that's going to be in this video. Um, so obviously we'll start out with the Texans. We're not going to go anywhere past step 5. We're just going to stop at the sign free agent point. Um, and that's all that I really want to do. I just want to talk about free agency and talk about guys that we can potentially sign. And even if they get re-signed by their team, I'm still going to want to put an emphasis on them. Um, we're 2 million positive in the cap space right now after the new league deal got signed. You can see the active cap hit. It's at um, I think 302. Um, so you're yeah, we should have about 2 million in the bank. So um obviously, if you cut Joe Mixon, which I expect us to do, you cut Mario Edwards, I expect us to do. Um, Jarrett Patterson's an interesting one because that's 4 million in the bank right there that you could potentially get. Um, I'll leave him for now, but I'm going to see our cap space situation. Um, other than that, Jake Hansen can go. Um, mm, I'd rather cut Patterson than Scruggs just because of the money. But Juice Scruggs really doesn't play for us, while Juice or Jarrett Patterson is a pretty viable option. So I'm gonna cut Juice Scruggs there. Other than that, I think that um, Huzzy might go, but I really like him. Same with Jawar Jordan and Johnny Carter. I think those two guys might go as well. And then you're looking to really restructure some guys. Daniil Hunter, I'm putting under restructure, but I think this should be re-signed. I think we should look to give him a 1 year extension, which frees up a lot of cap space for us. Titus Howard, I'm gonna put the restructure. Not because I want to, but just because I want to give us the extra money that obviously we're $20 million when it should be two. So Titus Howard and Dalton Schultz, two guys I don't want us to restructure, but I'm going to for the sake of this video. Um, so if we're talking true restructures, I want it to be Colin Stingley, re-sign Hunter, and then restructure Petrie, and then Aziz Schultz and Titus, I don't want to restructure. I'm just doing it for sake of the cap hit that we did have because we should be positive two. Um, and that will put us around +6, +7. Um, so a 4 million discrepancy there, but I really don't mind. Leaves us with 77 million remaining. I think Justin Watson can go. I almost skipped over him. Um, Xavier Hutchinson's an interesting one because I don't think you should cut him, but 4 million in savings is pretty important, which is why Jarrett Patterson's such an intriguing option because I think you could get valuable replacements in the draft or even in free agency at the guard position, um, especially if you're looking to improve on center. So I am actually going to cut Jarrett Patterson in this one, which leaves us with 82.5 million headed into free agency. And we go to the resign period, restructuring pretty much all our guys that we can restructure, but really pay attention to these three. Um, the Daniil restructure, the Nico restructure, the Stingley restructure. Those are the three guys that I truly want us to restructure. The others are for the sake of the video. I think Petrie opening up 6.7 million can be interesting too. So maybe Petrie alongside those guys are the true guys I want us to restructure. And then Howard, Schultz, and Aziz are the guys that I restructured for the sake of opening up the cap space that this thing miscalculated. Um, cut Joe Mixon. I think that's bound to happen. Frees up 8 million for us. Tremont Smith, 2 million for us. I think you could re-sign him for somewhere around that value too if you want him to be a special teamer still. Mario Edwards, you can see their values. Actually, that's interesting. Um, so you know what you'd expect to give them in free agency. You can see Joe Mixon. If you give him 2 million, he'd sign. Mario Edwards 1. Justin Watson 1. Really interesting, actually. But you can see other big restructures like Kyler Murray. And we're gonna go to the re-sign period. You can see the Ravens opening up a lot of money with their restructures and their cuts. Um, so yeah, let's go to the re-sign period. Joe Mixon is going to go. Other than that, I don't think you're looking to re-sign any running back. The only one that could potentially be back is Dare as a special teamer. So I'll go ahead and address that right now just because he's a very solid special teamer. Comes back for 1.25 million. Don't think that's a bad deal at all because he does have really good production on the special teams, and special teams is important. We saw how good the Rams were, but how bad their special teams were, which really held them back. Receiver, I'm gonna let Christian Kirk go. I just don't think it panned out the way anyone wanted it to, including Christian Kirk. So there's that. At tight end, Harrison Bryant's an intriguing one. We do have Stover coming back next year as well as Brevin Jordan. So it's going to be Schultz, Jordan, and Stover. Maybe look to one in the draft. So that's going to let me pull back on Harrison Bryant. Luke Lakey, I really like. And I think you can get him for around like 900K over 2 years, pretty much fully guaranteed. It's not accepted. If I give him one, then he'll accept it. I bet. No. Okay. Never mind. I just won't even talk anymore. He was a practice squad guy, so I think whatever offer anyone gives him, he's going to be willing to accept. Ed Ingram's a tricky one. I think if you can get him for, I'll give him 12. 12 over 2 for 90% guaranteed. That's accepted. So a lot of money allocated to Ed Ingram, but I think it's worth full money. And then Jarrett Patterson, if you can get him for round 2, then yeah, you save money there. And you do get him back to be very solid depth. Mario Edwards, I'm gonna leave. Sheldon Rankins, I'll try it. I mean 10. I'd give him 10 over 1. I think that's a very fair deal, which he does accept. So there's that. Derek Barnett is going to be my usual re-signing at 5.5, or can we just do 5 or 5.25? 5.25 over 2 with like 90% guaranteed. That's accepted. So that's really good money towards Derek Barnett. I think that's a very fair contract. Um, Other than that, you're looking at EJ Speed and Tommy Townsend. I think you can give him 2.75, and he will come in. We'll go 90% guaranteed in case he gets hurt or something. I don't know, but punters don't really get hurt. EJ Speed's an interesting one. I'm gonna look at the options in free agency rather than bring him back right away. Um, I think Danico Autry is a little too old to bring back. Naquan Jones was really good, man. If I can get him for around 2.5, maybe I'd bring him back. If it allows me to even put the 2.5, and it does. It's rejected, so that's the thing. Um, Other than that, is Lucky Fotu even here? No, he's not. So yeah, I think we head into free agency with about 50 million in cap space. Other guys I'd like to resign on this list, maybe Jawar Jordan comes back. I'm not gonna put that past us. He just didn't really do too much, and I feel like the team kind of moved on from him even after using him. But he did show flashes in the season, so I would like to bring him back because he is young, and I think if he can bulk up a little bit and still be a similar athlete to what he is, then he'll be a very good running back. But other than that, Luke Lakey maybe coming back, Harrison Bryant coming back, I wouldn't be opposed to. Trent Brown coming back, I wouldn't be opposed to, but I would really like to go address tackle in the draft or guard in the draft and allow Titus Howard to move back to right tackle. So I wouldn't go after Trent Brown, but I wouldn't be mad to see him come back. Ed Ingram, I think, should come back. I really like him. Jarrett Patterson, if you do cut him, I hope you can get him on a cheaper deal than what his cap hit is. And I think you should be able to because I don't think any team's really going to give Jarrett Patterson around $4 million a year. So I think you could cut him, get a cut price deal on him, and bring him back. Mario Edwards, maybe the same thing. If you give him, 1.5 over 2 years, we'll give him 1.6. Why not? See, that's rejected. He's on 4 right now, so I think if you get him for 2.5, then I'd be willing to bring him back. I don't think he was bad. I don't think he was great. So I'm just gonna leave it there because I'm not gonna pay him more than that. Tim Settle's an interesting one. I think he was very good this year. Really kind of showed out on the defensive line, so I'll give him that money. He does come back. Naquan Jones is someone I do want to bring back. Obviously, you can't really transition tag him or franchise tag him because that's so much money. But if he's willing to take a small deal, obviously I'm not going to offer it to him in this one because he's not willing to accept it. Then I would bring him. Christian Harris, I would just let go. EJ Speed, we'll see about in free agency. I think Miles Bryant's pretty impactful. So I'll give him 1.225 to come back. I think he's a very decent player. We'll go 80% guaranteed. That's going to be accepted all day of the week. and we have a very solid player that can play the nickel for us behind Jalen Petrie, which I think is important. But we head now to free agency. We're gonna look at the guys that didn't get or that did or didn't get re-signed. You can see we re-signed a lot of guys in Ingram, Rankins, Barnett, Townsend, Settle, Patterson, Ogumawale, and Bryant. Not really interested on anyone from the Cardinals. Maybe Jalen Thompson could be an interesting one. Um, but I think that's a lot of money to give out to his safety, especially of his caliber. LJ Collier is not bad. I think that'd be an intriguing one. Simi Fehoko, I didn't even know was still in the league, to be honest. Kyle Pitts re-signs with the Falcons. I think that's something the Texans could look at in free agency is addressing the tight end position or even the running back position. Tyler Algier re-signs with them. Tegan Quatoriano, former Texan, does resign with them. Pitts and Algier are two guys that I would like to be in Houston. Um, I really like Pitts as a receiver. I think you could utilize him in the pass game a lot more than we utilized anyone on our team, wherever you went. Kyle Pitts right there. And then Algier, I just think he could be a lead back somewhere, but he's behind Bijan Robinson, so it's a little bit difficult for him to be a lead back in Atlanta. But wherever he goes, I think he'll be successful. And I definitely think Houston's a decent fit for him because we do like running backs that can run between the tackles, make a guy miss, and then go, which Algier can definitely do. He's more of an in between the tackles guy. Other than that, Tyler Linderbaum, obviously, I'd love to resign or not resign. Love to sign. You can see the Ravens got him for about 17 million there over 5 years. I think he'll go around 20 in free agency, to be honest, but someone that I really want the Texans to go after because he can pass block, he can run block. He's really going to shore up that offensive line because we know our glaring need is at that center position. So him, McGovern, Mays, I think it's pretty clear that we're going after Cade Mays. Um, I would like to see us go after. Isaiah Likely, another one that I would like the Texans to go after just because we do have a need at tight end, in my opinion. I know we're getting Brevin Jordan back. I know that Cade Stover is also a very decent option, but I just don't really like what I saw from him in the playoffs. And Dalton Schultz is entering in a contract year next year, so I think that you could look to address that position in free agency or the draft as well, because the draft has some very good tight ends. I don't particularly see anything else from the Ravens though that I do really like. Yeah, David Ojabo maybe could be fun for the Texans. I just really like him. I like his game. There's going to be no centers available to me apparently because Connor McGovern gets re-signed as well. Um, yeah, 16 million for Connor McGovern's quite the sum when Linderbaum goes for what was it there? It was like 17, right? Yeah, 16.84 or 8.64, sorry. But McGovern's a really good center. I think if we were able to bring him in, Mason or Linderbaum in, then I'd be very happy. I talked about that not too long ago when I was talking about Linderbaum. I think one of the three would be an instant improvement on the offensive line and really help us moving forward. I think Cade Mays or Linderbaum would be my two, just because they're young. So I think you could give them a multi-year deal, like a 3 or 4 year deal while McGovern you're really stuck at a 1 or 2. Um, but I really like McGovern as a player. I'm not gonna shy away from that. Um, if we were able to bring him in, I'd be happy, but I do think he probably returns to Buffalo with not that much change in the scenery. Yes, they have a new head coach in Joe Brady, but he was our offensive coordinator, so it's not like much is changing. It's just McDermott's out the building now. Um, Daquan Jones can be an interesting one for us if he does hit the open market. Um, just a really solid player. And I think, he's older, so if you get him on a 1 year deal, he'd be very impactful. Um, if you're not able to sign Sheldon Rankins in free agency, I think this is a guy you can look at as an alternative, and I think he'd be very decent for us to plug and play right next to Tommy Togiai. So there is that. I do really like the fit of Daquan Jones potentially in Houston. Rico Dowdle, I'm not huge on him. It doesn't look like Cade Mays was re-signed. Um, I'm not. I'm not. Okay, he wasn't. That's good. I'll be able to get him in here. Um, I really like Coker's game. But I'll move on from that because we don't need really a receiver in free agency. I mean, there's always going to be an opportunity if we do want a sixth guy, because right now we have Collins, Dell, Higgins, Hutchinson, and Knoll. So maybe you want a sixth guy, another guy that can play the slot for you if you don't really see that being Tank Dell anymore. But obviously Tank Dell's going to have some time to settle in. It's not like he's going to be what we know he is in week one. Um, had a nasty injury, and I don't know if he's ever going to be back to his level, but Rico Dowdle really get back. I think, you could definitely call him and see what the price is. I don't want to give him a 4 year deal. I'd like to give him a 1 or 2 because he's already 28 years old. I think the running back prime really runs out when they hit that 30 range. even then, that's a little high for a running back, but he hasn't done much bell cow back work in his career, so I think it'd be fine giving him a 1 to 2 year deal because I do think there's still a lot left in his legs. But traditionally, for a running back, you don't really want to exceed that number. But I think Dowdle's a little bit of an exception because his career did start a little bit late, and really hasn't had to do much running in the NFL besides this year, and the past Cowboy season that he had where he was the RB1. But I do think he's a very solid back, and I would be happy if the Texans brought him in. But obviously, if there's other options, I would like to see those come to fruition. Saints free agents, I think Jonathan Owens could be an intriguing depth piece for us, and that's about it. I don't really see anything else I really like. Sean Wright, I mean, maybe as a backup corner, but he's going to require a lot more money than that with how good he was this season. Bengals, obviously, Trey Hendrickson's exciting. I think a lot of people would like Trey Hendrickson, but I don't think we need him. Same with Joseph Osai. Geno Stone could be an intriguing one just because he's younger and has produced pretty decently in the NFL. Dalton Reisner as well, if you want to go after a backup guard, I think he could definitely be one or potentially start for us if, he feels like this is the right environment and the team feels like it's the right environment for him to succeed because there's a very solid player in Dalton Reisner. I just don't think you'd give him a long-term deal, which the Bengals didn't in this. Um, so we'll see. Obviously, the Bengals defense isn't the best, so maybe Geno Stone does get is allowed to hit the open market because obviously they're not that great. Um, so he'd be able to explore other opportunities, and I think he could be a great backup safety or even a safety to play alongside Kalen Bullock in Houston. So there's that. So out of the Bengals, I really like Stone and Reisner. Browns, give me either of these guys, and I would really like either. Cowboys, either of these two, I would really like too. So these four guys right here, I would really like to bring in. Jenkins, Teller, I think, not really steal. Um, I'm not too big of him. I think he's a beneficiary of such a good offensive line in Dallas, but obviously there's a very good player in there. Javonte Williams showed a lot of promise this year, and I think a 1 year deal for him is very fair because maybe you want 2 years of consistent protection from Javonte Williams before you really commit to him long term. But I think a team will be able to or will be willing to commit to Javonte Williams long term. And I wouldn't be mad if that was the Texans. Obviously, I'd like a Brees Hall more than anyone else. I'd like a Kenneth Walker more than anyone else. But if Javonte Williams is there as an option, then I would like him in Houston if all other things don't go to plan. Tevin Jenkins, Wyatt Teller, just really good plug and play guards. I think would be able to start for us right away. Probably require a pretty penny. Tevin Jenkins just because of how young he is, and then Teller because of how good he is. But I think you could throw a bag at one of them for maybe a 1 year deal for Wyatt Teller, and he'd be able to come in and do you a really solid job. Other than that, I mean, if you can get Brendan Aubrey, I think any team's going to take Brendan Aubrey just because you need 15 yards if the ball goes out of bounds, and then you're in field goal range. With the Broncos, I mean, Alex Singleton could be an interesting option just because of our need at linebacker, but I don't really like that. John Franklin Myers isn't here, from what I see, so that's something you could look at. Jaquan McMillan could be a very good backup corner for the Texans if that's something we wanted to explore. Detroit, Anzalone could be interesting. Owens-Urike could be interesting as well, just because I think he's a very good plug at that D tackle position, just plugs gaps really well. And I think the Texans need that in the run game, which Owens-Urike really does for you. Was re-signed to a big deal 3 years ago, it feels like, and now he's getting re-signed, I guess. Um, but obviously not for the same APY that he was re-signed for a while ago. So there's that. Other than that, I'm not seeing anything. Maybe Zach Cunningham as a bring back to become a special teamer with the Packers. Excuse me. Emmanuel Wilson could be decent as an RB3 option if that's something you want to look after. Um, Other than that, Kingsley Kiki could be a good depth piece on the edge. I know it says Enigbora. I'm just used to calling him Kingsley Kiki, to be honest. Um, Other than that, I'm not seeing anything I really like from um, the Packers. The Colts, nothing really either. Jags, nothing really either. Um, I mean, ETN's going to be on the open market, so there's that. Alec Pierce would hit the open market for the Colts in this scenario, so there's that too. Two guys that I would like the Texans to explore because Alec Pierce, I think, has that deep threat ability that we don't really have from any receiver besides Nico Collins. The Chiefs, franchise tag Jalen Watson. Um, Chargers, I would like to explore Zion Johnson if he hit the open market. I don't think he will. I'm just saying if he does, then that's something I would like to look at. But again, I really don't think he will. Andre James could be something you explore too, because I think there's a very solid center in there. He didn't really play for them this year, but I think probably should have started. Um, and then Odafe is a really good player if he hits the open market. I don't think that's something we should look at. Deshaun Hand, I would like to look at, or Tier Tart from the Chargers, two guys that I really like, and I think two guys that we should explore the opportunity to sign if they do hit the open market. With the Rams, I mean, Robert Havenstein, if you're able to give him a 1 year deal and he hits the open market, then fine, go ahead. But I do think the Rams will be able to re sign him. And they re sign a lot of guys. Um, the Raiders, excuse me, not the Chargers. Eric Stokes is a good corner. Look good for them. um, but not really anything from them. I don't think you really want to sign guys from the Raiders unless they really showed out, which no one really did. The Dolphins either. Liam Eichenberg maybe to be a depth piece on the offensive line. I think he's decent. AJ Henning I really like as a return man if that's something you want to explore because you don't want to use Jawar Jordan in that role. I think you could do that. The Vikings, nothing really at all. Nothing I like. Jalen Redmond maybe could be an interesting option. Another guy similar to Enrique that's just a plug guy that you could sign, and he's going to plug gaps for you in the run game. Patriots signed Darrell Taylor or re-signed Darrell Taylor, who they cut. But other than that, Tonga's interesting to be a guy as a depth piece on the defensive line that can plug gaps as well. Um, Other than that, I don't really see anything. Jermaine Illuminor is someone that I think is an intriguing option for the Texans to look at. 5 year deal is never going to happen because he is in fact 31. Evan Neal too. I think the Texans could look to get two very solid players. I think Neal's more of a guard now though than a tackle. Illuminor would be able to play right tackle for us if you do want to um, put Titus Howard at the guard position. I think you could look to Illuminor in free agency because I think he had a very solid year. And Kirk Ferentz's son is now a coach with the Houston Texans, so maybe he wants to bring along an Illuminor or a Neal to teach some guys. I know he's a tight end coach, but sometimes tight ends do practice with the offensive line. I think Bellinger could be an intriguing option too for that exact reason that I just talked about. I think the Texans could look to bring in a tight end from the Giants to teach tight ends their ways. Brees Hall gets franchise tagged in this one. Obviously, if he's available, that's a guy I want the Texans to give all their money that they can to. Obviously, we will have the cap space with restructures, with cuts, with trades, with all that from Nick Casario to really go after some guys that we do want to go after. And I think Brees Hall could definitely be one of those guys because I really do like the player that Brees Hall is. Um, and probably more RB1 headed into free agency. Him and Kenneth Walker are obviously 1A, 1B, but I think Hall should be that 1A, just slightly above Kenneth Walker, just because explosive player get out the backfield in the pass game as well as the run game. So is Kenneth Walker. Don't get me wrong; they're both incredible backs, but I just really like Brees Hall, and I think you could use that Ohio or Iowa State connection. And other than that, no one really. From the Pittsburgh Steelers, no one really that I like at all. Kenneth Walker gets re-signed. I just talked about him. I would love to bring him in. Just such a dynamic back that has a really good jump cut. Able to get from gap to gap really well. Really good in the gap scheme, which we know Nick Haley likes. But he also likes his own scheme too, which I think Kenneth Walker could do. And if not, then you put in Woody Marks to be that change of pace, and I think he'd be able to do that role really well. But this is a guy that can lead your backfield. Same with Brees Hall. Same with Rico Dowdle. Same with Javonte Williams. Same with David Montgomery that I would like the Texans to look after in free agency. Or even Tyler Algier. I think those are the guys that you should be looking at if you're the Houston Texans in free agency. And I definitely think we will be able to with the amount of money that I think we'll open up free agency with in terms of cap space. Um, but yeah, Kenneth Walker is a big one, and I would really like him to be a Houston Texan if that opportunity does arise. Um, Other than that, it doesn't seem like the re-sign like Jack Job or anyone else. 49ers, that's a lot of money for Juwan Jennings, but maybe it's worth it for them. Other than that, you're looking at maybe Garrett Wallow to come in and be a depth piece for the Texans. Obviously, there's a connection there already. Mike Evans could be a trade target for the Texans, to be honest. If we're looking to really go big on that receiver core, you could have Nico Evans and Higgins as the wide receiver 3 behind one of those dudes if they're hurt, because we know Evans and Collins both miss games. So there's that, but not really going to put too much emphasis on that. That's just purely a hypothetical because he played at A&M, and he's a Texas guy. So there's that. Logan Hall could be an interesting one. One of the I think he might be the youngest player hit in the open market that was on a rostered team to finish the year in all of free agency and has shown some promise there. And he's another Houston guy. He went to U of H, I believe. So maybe there's potential for him to become a Texan. I think it would cost a pretty penny just because of how young he is, and he's been somewhat productive in his limited couple of years. So I do expect the team to throw a decent sum of money up there because I think he will be one of the more pristine defensive tackles on the open market just because of his age. And I think you'll be able to sign him to 2, a 3, or 4 year deal and not really have to regret it. So I think some team may go 4 for 32, 4 for 20, 4 for 28 maybe could be the total sum for Logan Hall, something like that. Other than that, I think Rashad White could come in and do a very solid job on our run game, to be honest. Um, and I don't see anything I like other than Christian Izien to potentially be a backup corner or even be a backup nickel for us. But we know that we did get Miles Bryant back. Titans, I mean, Chig Okonkwo would be very nice. I think he's an explosive tight end that we can use in multiple different ways. He's going for around 11.5 million in this one. I don't think he'll require that, to be honest, because he is about 28. But something I would like us to look at if we are looking for tight end in free agency rather than the draft, him likely are the two I think that I really want to go after. Other than that, obviously it's the Titans. There's not much there. Um, and with the Commanders, I mean, Jacob Martin to be a backup edge rusher could always be an interesting one just because you've had him here, you're familiar with him. Um, what happened to Nick Nash? Did he do anything this past year? I know a lot of people were high on him throughout the draft process last year. I don't know if he did anything this year or not, but that is everything from every team. So we will head into free agency, talk about the guys that we want. This is probably going to be a longer video because I'm not talking about like the true players that are getting re-signed here or hitting the open market. It's just guys that I do want us to be able to explore. Quarterback, not a need at all. I think you can look for a QB3 in free agent or in the draft, like a Luke Altmaier, if you really want to. Running back is something we need to talk about, because right now it's Woody and that's about it. I think an RB3 could be interesting in this free agents class, or just getting your RB1 and then finding someone else in the draft if you really want to. Um, but Donovan Edwards, a guy like that, could be your RB3 or an Elijah Mitchell. Amari DiMarcado could be your RB3. Hassan Haskins could be. I mean, Isaiah Pacheco could come in and do a solid job, or J.K. Dobbins could come in and do a solid job as an RB1 for maybe a year, but I don't think that's really anything you want to look at. Obviously, there's potential that we do bring Joe Mixon back. I don't think the team really trusts him anymore, though. And I do think we'll get away with that guaranteed money, that $2 million extra guaranteed, um, by getting him in for a medical and saying he failed that medical, so that's why we cut him. Sean Tucker is someone that I really like as a potential RB3 for this. Obviously, Travis Etienne is going to be our new RB1 because that's the only guy that really hit the open market that's a pristine option. Maybe he'd be willing to accept this, and he does. I think he'll go for more than that, but for this, I do think that's very solid money spent to get an RB1 in through the door. I think that's what we should look at. I don't think you should really rely on the draft to bring in an RB1. I think that should really be a change of pace guy. And then that kind of ices Woody Marks out, which I feel bad because I think he had a good year last year and showed some promise. But um, yeah, I think you should be looking for an RB1 through the free agency period rather than the draft period. And if you do get a running back here, maybe you don't even look to running back in the draft, or you look for an RB3 in the draft and let Woody Marks be that change of pace guy as the RB2 that's able to punch the ball in close to the end zone, because he does not go down sometimes. And I think someone that can be an RB3 is Hassan Haskins. So I'm just gonna offer him that. Doesn't take it, okay. Um, I mean, Brian Robinson Jr. could be an interesting guy to bring in. Um, Kind of if you wanted to hit a backfield, I guess he could do a job there. But um, who'd I have? I had Hassan Haskins. I'll go 1.5. Why not? Come in, buddy. There you go. So ETN, Marks, and Haskins to lead the backfield in free agency. I think people would feel confident with that because Haskins isn't even that bad as a running back, and he can do a job in the punt game, as well as the kick off game. I think he did for the Chargers this last year, so I think he could do a solid role. On the receiver position, obviously, everyone's going to want Alec Pierce here. I think other guys you can look at, if you do want an extra guy in the room, that could potentially be on the punt game, can potentially just be a special teamer, would be someone um, like a D. Eskridge could be an interesting one, just to be a depth guy. Um, yeah, it's the only one I really see. I mean, De'Ami Brown got a lot of money, so I don't think he'd be willing to come in. George Pickens is obviously the pristine wide receiver headed into free agency that I think a lot of teams are going to give a lot of money to. Jahan Dotson could be a guy that you look to bring in, Jalen Guyton. But I'm not going to go after anyone I don't think the Texans really need to address wide receiver in free agency. Maybe they get one in the draft or one as a UDFA. Tight end, though, I would like us to look at. I really like the idea of bringing in a David Njoku, a Jake Tonjes, maybe even a Donald Parham. Excuse me. I would like even Greg Dulcich. I think is a very solid option just to be a depth piece on that tight end room. But I really like the idea of bringing in Jake Tonjes. I really like the idea of bringing in David Njoku, or Isaiah Likely. One of the bigger names I would like to bring in at tight end, to be honest, because I do think this team needs an upgrade there um, to its depth. So I will be making a move here with the money that I do have, and that money will be allocated towards Mr. Where did he go? Um, I was just talking about him somewhere here, right? Who was I talking about? I just missed it. Um, obviously not here. Obviously David Njoku is there. Oh, Jake Tonjes, that's who I'm thinking of. Sorry. Um, I don't know how much he would require. I think if you give him around 3 million a year, he should be willing to accept that, and he does. I think that's a really good backup tight end, to be honest. Stepped up and did a role that George Kittle couldn't. Or when George Kittle couldn't. Sorry, not that George Kittle couldn't do that role. It was just that Ton just came in when George Kittle tore his Achilles. Um, on the offensive tackle, I don't really like the options that are hitting the open market, to be honest. I think if you're looking for someone, you're probably looking for like a Jedrick Willis. Because he's young and you can still coach him up. But yeah, I'm not too big of a fan of anyone here, really. Um, I mean, yeah, not really. I mean, Ryan Ramczyk, Teron Armstead are both retired. I know they're big names, but they're not even really available unless they're wanting to come out of free agency or retirement to free agency. But yeah, no one really in the offensive tackle position that I do like. That's why I do want the team to address it in the draft so heavily. So when I do these mock drafts, it's based on what I think the available free agency class is. And I don't think the tackles are all that great. You have Rasheed Walker, um, ABCD, who's a potential tackle that you could go after. And I think he's very solid, but I think that's really the only one. In terms of guard, I think there's some very decent guards in free agency. Um, like a Ben Barch is very solid. Um, I really like Chris Paul's game, to be honest. I think that's someone you could look at. Cole Strange, I think you could look at. Falele, I think you can look at. He had a down year, but I think you could definitely improve. Dylan Radons, you can look at. But yeah, I mean, I think the creme of the creme in terms of the offensive line is coming at the center position in this free agent class. So good thing for the Texans that they do have a very big need there. Because I mean, you look at the options here that weren't signed or were re-signed or weren't re-signed. Excuse me. Sorry, I keep messing up my words, and you're kind of just thinking it's not the best. But here in terms of center, Cade Mays is going to be the easy option here. He's going to require a lot more than this in actuality, but I think you can get him for around this in here, maybe 5.5. We'll get the deal done. But I think with Cade Mays, you could give a okay, maybe they got it right. Um, I think with Cade Mays, you could give a pretty healthy um, or a pretty lengthy contract too, and he'd be able to come in for that. Because I do think he's a really good player. And how much is this going to cost? My lord. Um, maybe they got this accurate. I expect it to be around 10 to 11 in real life, to be honest. And this is not being accepted, so maybe we are going to be around the range that I just talked about. 9 over 3 for 90%. That's not even accepted. That's kind of bizarre. I'll go 10. 10 over 3, 90% guaranteed. That's not even accepted. Um, so maybe they got this spot on. Yep. I'm not too mad at that. I think that's what Cade Mays will get in real life. I don't think that cap hit is going to be 11 million because you're giving him 90% guaranteed a year, so it's not all the way up there unless he played his every game. Offensive guard, I mean, you can look at the options. I think you can move Jarrett Patterson to guard, Titus Howard to guard, and then look at a tackle in the draft. Um, but if we were to bring one in from this class, I really like the idea of bringing Chris Paul as depth. And I think this would be around a $2.5 million deal over 2 years, probably. That's not even accepted. So screw me for talking. I can't get anything right. Maybe three. I'll give him 3.3. Guess not. Am I dumb? Maybe. I think that's very fair for Chris Paul. I'll go 4. Why not? That's accepted. Okay, that's fair. I think 4 for Chris Paul is not a bad deal. On the defensive line, I think you could look for one option. And this is a off or defensive line class, excuse me, that has a lot of options on there, a lot of depth pieces. Not really a standout guy, but I think one that stood out to me that I didn't see would have been John Franklin Myers if he's here, um, and I don't see him. So there's that. Little annoying, but John Franklin Myers would be someone I'd like the Texans to look at. Um, Other than that, you're looking at, I mean, no one really. Maybe just bringing back a guy in like Ufotu, something like that. Give him 2 over 2, 90% guaranteed. That's accepted. Should be every day of the week. And then another guy that's decent depth that you could look at. I mean, I have no idea what happened to Christian Wilkins, but um, Derek Nottie could be very decent depth. Is Tier Tart here? I didn't see him with the. He is here. I think that's someone you could look at. If you give him like 4 million over 2 years, I think that's something he'd be willing to accept, and that's accepted in here. So I think that's very solid. Edge, I don't think you need to touch. Linebacker, you do need to touch. I think at least once. And you can get a guy that's young, or you can get a guy that's a depth piece, like who we had in EJ Speed, who I think is very good. I mean, obviously Devin Lloyd. If you can get him in, then I think every team should be able to get or should try to get him in. Ivan Pace Jr. is another one though that I really think could be an intriguing option, and I think if you get him for around 3.5, then you're doing some very good business in free agency, which you are able to in this. So there is that. I think there's a very solid player in Ivan Pace still. So I think if you can try to bring him in, then you should look to do that. Other than that, you're really looking at safety, and that is your last thing. Andre Cisco, I would really like as a Houston Texan for about 3 million a year over 2 years, um, and he does accept that. Other safeties that I do like do consist of Kobe Bryant. Um, you know, I'll chuck some money at Kobe Bryant every day of the week. I do like the way he plays. And there, you just rebuilt your team. Um, Other than that, I mean, Jalen Mills to be a depth piece is never bad. Jordan Poyer to be a depth piece is never bad. Same with Juan Thornhill. Same with Julian Blackman. Um, just a lot of decent guys in here. What happened to Lewis Steen, man? I thought he was going to be a really good player out of Georgia just because of how well he led that defense to the national championship. Nick Cross and Nick Scott could both be guys you look at as depth pieces as well. But yeah, I think you really killed this free agency. And if you can get Alex Leatherwood with your remaining money just to be a guy that you can coach up, then by all means go ahead and do it and leave yourself with $3,000 left in the bank. And you do. Yeah, I think you killed this free agency, to be honest. You look at guard in the draft, you look at tackle in the draft, and then just like that, you're kind of set heading next season. Um, and you can see ETN comes in, Fotu comes in, Tier Tart comes in, Cisco, Leatherwood, Hassan Haskins, Chris Paul, Kobe Bryant, Cade Mays, Jake Tonjes, Ivan Pace, all signed um, within our cap space, leaving us with $4,000 left, which is pretty funny. But um, I mean, obviously Zach Martin's a really good free agent, but he's not really a free agent, so there's that. Tre'Davious White had a bounce back year, but I don't think he'll go anywhere other than Buffalo because I think he fits what they do there, and that's pretty much all he fits. Mike Hilton's an interesting one to the Panthers. Other than that, though, that players that were signed, I think J.K. Dobbins, you can look at. EJ Speed, obviously, you can look to bring back. I bring him back for about 4.5 million every time, so that's very fair money. Bam Knight could be an interesting RB3 now that I think about it. I think he will be brought back to Arizona. Sorry. Other than that, I mean, Kevin Zeitler, yeah, obviously, you love offensive line. Kevin Zeitler could be one. You could try to revitalize Marcus Williams' career because you do need a run stopping safety, and I think Marcus Williams is certainly that. Sebastian Joseph Day could be an interesting one. Not really the best year last year, but I think you could definitely do something with him. Um, Cam Smith to be a backup corner could be an interesting one in case Jalen Smith gets hurt again. You don't really want to run out Tremont Smith again. Martin Emerson Jr., same exact thing as I just said. Um, Frank Gore Jr. is funny. Um, that's a lot of money for Cam Robinson. Jeez. Thomas Booker could be decent depth on the defensive line if you want to bring him back. Um, Other than that, you're looking at, let's see. I think that's a decent fit, actually. Joe Flacco to the Jets for 1 year. I think he could do a job there. Um, but other players that you'd like to bring in, um, don't really see many. Tremont Smith goes for 3.5. That's a lot of money. Um, Justin Fields goes for 20 to the Titans. It's a little funny. Obviously, Falele could be an interesting one, especially for that price. I think that's a decent player to bring in. But yeah, that wraps up pretty much my entire free agency video. This is not really the traditional free agency video where it's just signing free agents. I guess we can go through a draft and see what our predictions are, but kind of just leave this with a grain of salt. It's not really a true 7 round mock draft. We're just kind of going through it and trying to get the best guys available. Need to upgrade tackle. Need to upgrade other things as well, um, like safety, like D tackle. We'll go with Lee Hunter. Why not? Um, but you can see they don't even have our true draft picks in here, so there's that. Um, they got just upgraded D tackle, so I'll hold off. Let's go guard. Why not? Um, but yeah, what I'm talking about is, I think this team could upgrade it in a multitude of different positions, throughout free agency and the draft. This video was specifically just talking about the free agents that I do like. It's not really saying who I think the Texans will sign. It's just talking about my favorite fits, what I think about each free agent that I think the Texans can look to bring in. And I feel like it worked out pretty well with using this simulator as the format because it did have a lot of guys listed out. Um, so there is that. We'll go with um, I don't really like anyone here, but I guess it doesn't really matter to be honest. Not really focused on this part of the draft, but we'll scroll back up. We'll just go with the top guy to bring some corner depth. Why not? Um, but yeah, I really like a lot of the free agents in this class. I think it's a decent class. I don't think it's one of the better classes that we've had, but I think it's a decent class, especially for what the Texans need. They need running back, they need D tackle depth, and then they need some safety depth. Obviously on the offensive line too, there's very solid offensive line coming in. Um, and Malachi Fields is all the way down there. I don't know why, but take all this with a grain of salt. It's not really the best. I was just using this to show the all the free agents that I would like the Texans to look after. You can see we're 4-2, so there's that. But um, yeah, all the free agents I'd like the Texans to look after. I feel like I talked about covered in this video. If there's other guys you want me to talk about, I'd be more than willing to. Just let me know, and I'd be very happy to do so. We're the 3 seeds, so we'll see how far of a run we can make. The divisional, there's that. But yeah, let me know what y'all think about this video down in the comment section below. Ignore the draft part, ignore the prediction part. It was just about talking about the free agents in this one. I just want to get to this point so I can show you the entire sign thing. So you sign ETN, you sign Haskins, you resign Wale. Structure Collins, restructure Schultz, sign Tonjes, I think could be an interesting one. Sign Leatherwood to be some depth. Resign Ed Ingram, I think, is priority number one of this offseason. Signing Chris Paul would be an uh, interesting depth there that I think could start. Cade Mays, I think, should be an important signing and priority number one in free agency if it's not Linderbaum. Um, and then other than that, I think signing Tier Torque could be an interesting one because you do need to run stuff around there, and I think he definitely does that. But yeah, let me know what y'all think about this video down in the comment section below. Let me know what y'all opinions are about y'all's favorite free agents down in the comment section below. Let me know who is your favorite um, out of all the Texans need. So who's your favorite offensive lineman? Who's your favorite running back? Who's your favorite safety? Who's your favorite linebacker? Who's your favorite D tackle? Let me know down in the comment section below. I always respond to every single one. We hit 400 subscribers today, so thank you all so much for allowing me to reach that mark. And as always, it's Texans Takeover. I'm out. Thanks again for watching. And if you did enjoy this video, please be sure to like, subscribe. Peace.